know me. I hope that I know everybody here, but for those of you who don't know me, that's who I am. I'm just introducing the session. We're going to have, the session will be led today by Imed Zabaar, who is the president of the IAEA Staff Association in Vienna. He's a long-time member of the FICSA Executive Committee as well, not currently a member of the FICSA Executive Committee, but has been for many years. And has been the FICSA point person on the cost of living issues and post-adjustment issues for very many years. In particular, FICSA has been very active since 2017 in the review of the methodology on the cost of living, which was approved in March 2021 at the 91st session of the ICSC. And we were also part of the review of the operational rules, which will be put in, which will be applied for the 2021 round of surveys. We're lucky that Imed has been following these issues for us for so many years, and he's kindly agreed to be our lead today on the Ask the FICSA Expert. He'll introduce the subject for us, talk through the process, and then he is joined today by Omar Abdi from the ICSC Secretariat, who will make a brief presentation on the issue, and both Imed and Omar will then be available for your questions and answers going forward. I just also want to let you know that this session is being recorded so that we can share it with our colleagues who aren't available today, because we do know that this is a very important topic. We're very pleased that we've been working in cooperation with the ICSC on this topic for very many years, and we hope to continue to support the rollout of the surveys and the processes with the LSCs over the next couple of months. And we're very happy indeed to have Omar with us today from the ICSC. Without any further ado, Imed, I think I'll pass it over to yourself to take it over. And when you're ready for questions and answers, if you'd like me to facilitate, just let me know. Thanks so much to both of you.
Thank you, Tanya, and good afternoon, colleagues. And thank you also, Omar, for joining us from New York today. Let me start by stating that when the staff federations, particularly FICSA, requested a holistic review of the methodology for the cost of living surveys for determination of the post-adjustment and including the operational rules, one of the requirements where everyone agreed is to ensure that the methodology will provide stability and enhance predictability, but also will be easily understood by all, because in a way, the way it used to be written in the past, many of us had difficulties even to understand or even to explain to staff how these rules would impact their net take-home pay. So I will try in my brief introduction today to speak simple English, because what I want to tell everyone, and I hope maybe many of you are listening and you are members of your local survey committee, you don't need to be an expert statistician to be a member of your local survey committee. Even with FICSA in its participation with the review of the methodology, we often brought even external specialists, and we hired the best, as you can imagine, to represent us and to ensure that throughout this review, we bring in experts who would support us to ensure that the new methodology addressing all the concerns raised by all stakeholders. In this respect, what's very important, colleagues, and I'm speaking here from experience, is to familiarize yourself with the process. To start with, I would advise everyone, if you haven't done so, to see the FICSA, various FICSA communications that sent to your staff associations union on all the developments, on all the changes that happened throughout the past years, in particular to the methodology and okay, someone muted me, so I'm gonna unmute myself. But I was referring to the need to maybe familiarize yourself and to start with, please, try to have a good read to all the communications shared with you by FICSA. Also, a good source of information is the ICSC, its own website that contains a very famous booklet named United Nations Post-Adjustment System. And there it is a bit lengthy, it's about 87 pages, but really it contains all the basic information that you need to know, at least to have a good understanding if you're planning to be a member of your local civil committee. It's good that you read through this so that at least you understand the roles and responsibilities and understand the process and all its phases. Recently, FICSA produced a nice also communication on the new system of operation rules. And this is really a great achievement. In fact, all the changes reflecting all the hard work that put by the Staff Federation, particular FICSA here, to reinstate again the gap closure measure into the system of the operation rules, on which is a mechanism to protect the salaries of staff from any sudden decline. I want to state, I hear again an echo from someone, so please, if you can mute your microphone until maybe you would like to take the floor to speak. Otherwise, please, colleagues, if you can keep your microphone muted. Now, as decided by the ICSC in its last summer session, the intention is now to begin within next round of cost of living survey, and this will include, of course, this is when every duty station will have to play a role, starting with establishing of a local survey committee, and to initiate the process in full consultation and dialogue between the local survey committee and the ICSC Secretariat. I would like to highlight here or ask a question, maybe how many of those of you now listening are actually participating in the local survey committee? Maybe just raise your hands, virtual hand, to give me an indication so that I know. Tanya, you are one of them. Okay, I see quite a few hands raised. Perfect. That's very, very good. Interesting. So I don't know at which phase you are in, but what I would like to draw your attention to is the list of, let me open it so that I have it in front of me. The list of important criteria that actually FICSA pushed for its establishment, and with following the agreement of the Commission, these criteria now must be used by each local survey committee prior even to beginning with the cost of living survey exercise. And you, as a local survey committee, once you have been formally established, at the first meeting, the first exercise that you need to conduct is to assess and evaluate the feasibility of the survey within your duty station based on those criteria. These criteria include reopening of restaurants and non-essential shops within your duty station, access to cultural and recreation facilities. You have as well the availability of international flights, whether staff could fly and come back easily now, or there are still some restrictions for traveling. Public transportation, is it allowed in the duty station or not? And then the general return to the office. Are all the staff now required to work on the premises, or are the staff still working from home, etc.? So these are, as well as the general availability of goods and services. Can staff find all the goods they want, or there's any restriction? Are the shops closed? Are some services not really available? These are important criteria that were deemed crucial to determine whether the survey could be conducted or not, and this is to ensure that the purchasing pattern of staff is not affected. Bearing in mind that we're trying to, as much as possible, to compare your duty station against New York, which is the base of the survey, and therefore it is important to ensure that the same conditions are applicable. As you well know, and Omar will later confirm, there has been already the phase one has begun, meaning the ICSC has collected prices already in New York, and now moving to phase two, which is now that within the various duty stations, following the agreed schedule, that they will start with the price collections from the various duty stations, as well as staff will be invited to participate in the staff expenses survey. So there are two elements that are important where the local survey committee and you as a staff representative also play a role to continuously raise awareness and encourage all the colleagues to participate and maybe try to answer any questions that may be raised. If you allow me, I will stop here, and I would like to hand over now to Omar from the ICSC. He might be able to provide you with more information on the maybe important changes to the new system of operation rules to them, and maybe to clearly explain the steps of the process. I'd rather have the colleagues hear that from you, Omar, if you don't mind, and any other additional information that you'd like to bring to the attention of everyone listening today. Omar, up to you.
Thank you very much, Imed. Good afternoon, good morning, everyone. Thank you very much to FICSA for organizing this session. I think at times like this, a session like this will go a long way in explaining the cost of living survey process and about the post-adjustment methodology to those that matter, and those are the staff members who are supposed to respond to these questions or are affected by changes in the methodology. So thank you very much again for your contributions to the deliberations of the ICSC on various occasions about the post-adjustment methodology. I would like to acknowledge the presence of my chief as well, Ibrahim Yansane, is in the audience and might say a few words at some point or answer to some of the questions.
My apologies that I didn't realize Ibrahim was with us. Welcome, Ibrahim, as well, and thank you for pointing that out, Omar. Thank you.
So I'm just going to share a few PowerPoint slides, if you might give me a second. Okay, is this visible, Tanya?
Okay. Yes, it is. Thank you, Omar. Perhaps just put it in presentation mode. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so as was already mentioned, we are now into the 2021 round of surveys. So these surveys are conducted, the methodology is set once every 5 years. So the current one is the 2016 methodology that is used up to today. And now we're starting a new round of 2021. Usually a new round begins with the headquarter duty stations, as I said earlier, and this includes all the 8 headquarter duty stations and Washington, DC. For this round, we are including 2 field duty stations for purposes of representativity, and these are Bangkok and Nairobi. They will be surveyed as well at the same time as the headquarter duty stations, although their methodology will be based on the 2016 round, but their data expenditure patterns will be used together with those of the headquarter duty stations. So as of October, we have these expenditure surveys going on in 3 places. We have New York, Vienna, and Paris conducting the survey as we speak. The LSCs have already conducted all this criteria of assessments for these duty stations and have confirmed for the survey to proceed. So that's a good news for the new round. In November, we will be conducting surveys in the rest of the duty stations, so the rest of the HQ duty stations and the 2 field duty stations. Then once this is done and their results are approved, recommended by ACPAC, approved by the Commission, then we will go into rolling out the new round to the rest of the duty stations, mainly with the Group 1 duty stations first. These are other European duty stations, for example, and then this will be from later part of next year. Then after that, we will go on to the rest of the duty stations. So what is post-adjustment? Post-adjustment is an amount paid in addition to the net base salary to ensure for the purchasing power of the salary of unit staff, irrespective of where they are, in relation to the base of the system, which is New York. So wherever you are, your cost of living is measured against New York, and a cost of living measurement is established, and a post-adjustment amount is determined for your duty stations. That will give you a purchasing power that's equivalent to all UN staff, irrespective of where they are. And the UN salary structure is composed of a gross base salary and a post adjustment. So the gross base salary consists of the net base salary and the staff assessment.
In the beginning,
Excuse me, can I ask that everybody mutes their microphone, please? Thank you. You're all welcome, but please respect the speakers. Thank you.
Thank you, Tanya. The post adjustment is then applied to the net base salary. So it's a percentage over the net base salary, which is called the post adjustment. It's a significant component in terms of the UN salary structure. System-wide, the average is about 30%. So 30% of the net base salary is accounted as post adjustment. But this percentage varies from duty station to duty station. In September 2021, for example, post adjustment ranged from 8.9% of the net base salary to 112.1% of the net base salary. So you can see that for some duty stations, it's actually higher than even the net base salary, 112.1%. And this percentage depends on how the cost of living in that duty station is measured against New York. So if a place is more expensive than New York, it gets a higher post adjustment. If it is cheaper than New York, it gets a lower post adjustment. Now, once we determine the cost of living measurement, which in our vernacular we call post adjustment index, the ICSC vernacular post adjustment index, this is a statistical measure. How does the cost of living in this duty station measure to that of New York? And we develop a post adjustment index. This post adjustment index is then updated over time until another place-to-place survey is conducted using data from the duty station. And this includes exchange rates. This includes the consumer price indices established by the statistical authorities in the country of the duty station. So this is updated over time. Once a new survey is conducted, then data is refreshed and new data is put in. Now, how do we move from post-adjustment index, which is the statistical measure, to post-adjustment multiplier? And here is where we have these operational rules that determine how you move from this PAI to PAM, post-adjustment multiplier, which is what eventually measures the level of pay. One post-adjustment multiplier is equivalent to 1% of net base salary. So if your post-adjustment multiplier in a duty station is 50, then that means your post-adjustment amount will be 50% of the net base salary in that duty station. PAI consists of various components. At an aggregate level, we have these 5 major categories that we measure. The first category is called in area, excluding housing. So this is to account for expenditures incurred within the duty station or within the country of the duty station. Then we have the housing component. There's another component we call out of area, which is used to measure the expatriate nature of UN staff, since they travel often. There's a lot of home leave, there's a lot of R&R, and so this will account for expenditures incurred outside of the country of duty station. Then we have the pension contribution and the medical index. This changes duty station by duty station in terms of both for weight and the index. The only 2 indices that are the same across the board in every month will be the out of area index and the pension index. Everything else is duty station specific. One other thing I will mention is about the weights that are used, particularly for the in-area component, in-area excluding housing component. The weights used for this category is called common weights. So this is the expenditure patterns of the UN Common System staff across the 9 duty stations, the 8 headquarters in Washington, D.C., and now plus Bangkok and Nairobi. So the expenditure patterns are averaged across these 11 duty stations to get a common weight for this in-area component. PAI, Post Adjustment Index, is basically an aggregation of weights and indices. Generally, these weights come from staff expenditure. So when we are conducting these surveys now, and we have this questionnaire where you'll be filling, it is to get the weight, the proportion of money you spend on the various categories. So how much you spend on food, how much you spend on clothing, how much you spend on car and airplane tickets. So we get weights for this. Indices, which is the price ratio, so generally come from the market. So we conduct price survey for this, and we say what is the cost of a rice in this duty station compared to New York, and that gives us a ratio, which is an index, and the aggregation of these two now is what gives us the PAI. Now we have two components of the cost of living survey. One is the expenditure survey. So this is where the staff fill the questionnaire, and the aim for this is to get the weights. This consists of the housing and domestic service components within the questionnaire, and also household expenditures. So household expenditures meaning everything else other than housing and domestic service. And so there's an online questionnaire that gets sent to staff to fill. That is the expenditure survey. The price survey is we have a basket of items that are determined. That is the same for almost all the duty stations, and we go to the market to conduct prices for these items during the survey month. So for example, in October, we'll be conducting prices in places where the October survey is open. Then there's a survey coordinator's report, which is also the survey coordinator conducts prices for some items that are specific to the UN, such as education, medical, so doctors' fees, items from the UN canteen. So these are items priced by the survey coordinator. All the other items are priced by ICSC pricing teams that go to all these headquarter duty stations. Who participates in this survey? All professional staff from P1 to D2, and also for field service categories from FS6 to FS7 do participate. Also, staff of non-UN Common System organizations that follow the UN compensation system also participate, such as IOM. There are staff that are not eligible, such as those above the D2, staff living in a hotel or lodging house, those sharing rent with others, or those with a contract of less than 1 year with no expectation of renewal. And the reason why these are not included or are not eligible is because the expenditure patterns is not representative of what happens at the duty station. Why should staff participate? Well, it's to contribute to the updating of the expenditure weights. As I said, we have a new round. Up to now, we are using expenditure weights that were collected in 2016 from this headquarter duty station. So participation will help improve the updating of these weights and to create a more accurate PA post-adjustment index for the duty station. What happens if there is no survey? The alternative or the contingency plan is to use the 2016 expenditure weights that will be updated, and this is a distortion of the reality. And so it's encouraged that staff actually participate so that we can have a more accurate data. What about surveys during the pandemic? Why are we conducting surveys during this pandemic? Well, we understand that expenditure patterns have changed, and so did prices. Both price and expenditure patterns have changed during this pandemic, and it's by itself a reason to conduct a survey so that reality is captured. A new survey will also help align the expenditure patterns with changes in price levels. So if an item has its price increased but has a low weight, this will have a downward impact on the index because it does not accord that item the weight it deserves. And so the ratio or the higher price of that item will not be reflected in the PEI. And so conducting or refreshing the data will help align changes in expenditure patterns with changes in price levels. And our current data is outdated. As I said, it's from 2016, and so it's a little bit far away from the reality, and so we need to refresh. Other organizations are also conducting surveys, such as statistical offices for their own purposes, or some international organizations as well are conducting surveys even during the pandemic. ICSC, in fact, suspended the conduct of surveys during the outbreak of the COVID-19, but resumed when this was practicable again in November 2020. What's new for the 2021 round? We have a new methodology. There are some updates to the methodology, including domestic service calculations, the calculation of the medical index, as well as the elementary aggregation of the indices from item level going up. We have revised operational rules. ACPAC is new, so ACPAC is the body that looks at the statistical methodology of the post adjustment. It's a body which is an independent of the ICSC and consists of statisticians from all the regions of the world, and so they are new members. Almost all of them are new for this round. We have redesigned online survey questionnaire. Its attempt has been made to make it simpler, to make it more understandable. And for those that have already filled, I hope you have seen that. There is update to the procedures and guidelines as well in conducting the survey. What are the processes to be followed? We have redesigned survey coordinator report. So this survey coordinator report is now online. It used to be done on paper before. It's now online. The Excel format is still available, which you can fill and send it by email as well. But there's an online option where you just log in and submit the data online. We have the RTPC, meaning the real-time price comparison items. So these are mainly electronic items. So, and they need to be priced at the same time between the duty station and New York. These are items that are prone to a lot of changes, sometimes very frequently. And this includes phones, laptops, like televisions. There are always new models. And so we price them under a little different methodology called the real-time price comparison methodology. And these items have been updated, and they have new guidelines for the list of outlets and their compilation, which is done by the local survey committee. That's it from me, Imed. Back to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Omar, for the very interesting presentation, and I hope that you can share it with FICSA so that we can maybe share it to all our members. I've read some comments on the chat. Some colleagues are really find it useful and asking already for it. But starting with the last point, you mentioned the outlet selection guidelines. Now I'm moving to practical tips and hoping that most of you who already indicated that they are members of the LSSC. So the LSSC already, I would assume, has been established. And one of the first really tasks that you will have to do is to define and really select outlets for in preparation for the price collection. So there is an outlet selection guidelines for HQ duty station, and that you also need to read to familiarize yourself with it, and need to ensure when selecting those outlets that these outlets really representative and would be located in areas where the most of the UN population would normally do its shopping. It may sometimes during discussion of local survey survey committee, some individuals that have their individual preferences, but please make sure that our personal preferences would not maybe, I would say, mislead us, because we need to ensure the good representation and the selection of those outlets and its location. One new actually changes, Omar maybe did not mention that, is that for this time, and because of the technological changes, there will be in-person data collection, but there will be also use of online price collection. And therefore, the local survey committee, when preparing the list of outlets, would have to provide the websites for all these outlets, as well as maybe their addresses and in Google Maps to help the survey team. Omar, if I'm correct, normally there is a member or one or two members from the ICSC Secretariat, accompanied always together with an observer from the local statistical office in Austria, for example, from Statistic Austria, or in Geneva, someone from the that office there, together with a member from the local survey committee and another observer. And the members will go according to the list of items and the agreed and approved list of outlets that you sent first to the ICSC, and it's once approved by the chair, that list would be used for that process. Omar, can you confirm the composition of the data collection team, please, if you don't mind?
Yes, that is you're correct, Imed.
Okay, thank you.
And for the outlet selection, for the outlet list selection, I will say that you should not be bogged down to get the web address of every outlet. Of course, you can choose to have online price collection for a subset of the list of outlets. So you should not get web address of every outlet, which might be difficult to do.
Okay, we did this here in Vienna, but I want to draw your attention that many actually outlets, they have a website, but it's just a front page for advertising, just to block or book that domain. So you would have to face that, and obviously that would require everyone to go physically and to collect prices from that area. So now the prices have been collected and entered into the database of the ICSC. Omar, maybe you can briefly describe the process. What will you do now when you enter the prices into your database, so that everyone would understand exactly what to expect and what role can they play?
Yes. Thank you very much, Imed. So what happens once the prices are collected is we do the first review of the data collected. So we analyze the prices at item level. So for rice, we collected this number of quotes. What quotes can be considered outliers? What quotes do not meet the specification? So data is first cleaned. Once the data is cleaned, then a second review is done first is done by one team within ICSC, one statistician within ICSC. There's a second review done by a second statistician within the ICSC. Then we discuss about the result of the survey at a division-wide meeting where we review all this. Once we have results for the duty stations, then it goes to before ACPAC, we make it available to representative of the duty station. So duty stations can send experts to review the data and the processing of the data, even before it goes to ACPAC. So we'll open our box. They often even come to New York and go through the data processing line by line. They make their report to of course the duty station or the staff union or organizations, whoever sent them. So once that is done, then we go to ACPAC. ACPAC reviews the result, and this is where staff representatives participate, including FICSA. We have organizations come. We have even some of the consultants that hired might also be invited to attend as observers. So ACPAC deliberates on the results and makes a recommendation to the commission. Then,
Omar, what I wanted to clarify to colleagues, in particular on the verification, and this is important for the members of the local civic committee, you get to verify the accuracy of the prices, and you will be maybe able to identify some maybe mistakes or wrong inputs, and this is normally verified and also updated if maybe some mistake has been done. But also you need the support of an expert statistician who will be able to look onto the statistical calculations and how this is really have been promulgated to provide the final index. So I recall from previous exercises, we went together with an expert statistician to the office of the Secretariat, and we spent 1 or 2 days going through all the data till we felt very satisfied with the outcome. And feel free to, of course, ensure that if you identify some maybe wrong prices or prices that maybe do not make sense, to reflect those to the ICSC, because either they will exclude those or they will verify maybe there has been an issue in the data input. Sorry, Omar, I wanted to clarify this point because
yeah. No, thanks, Imed. I just wanted to go back to the point on the composition of the pricing team that goes to the stores for the price collection. Of course, some outlets are very small, and we do not want to overwhelm them with a lot of people coming in at the same time, looking at their prices. And so the composition will be one ICSC staff member, the pricing consultant, usually from the National Statistical Office, the duty station, an observer. So this observer is nominated by the LSC and doesn't necessarily have to be an LSC member. Will be a retiree, and what's encouraged is that this person be somebody with no vested interest in the results. So it's an ICSC staff member, a price consultant, and an observer that will go to the stores. Thank you, Imed.
Thank you, Omar. And Tanya, I'm going to hand over to you. I think we better stop here. I hope that this very quick briefing is very useful, but maybe our colleagues might have any other questions that will help us also add any additional information required. So over to you, Tanya. Thank you.
Thank you both. Thanks, Imed, and thanks, Omar. I think this is very helpful particularly for our colleagues who are members of the local LSCs who have either started or are in the process of starting this survey in their duty stations. And if it's not for this time, for those outside of the headquarters duty stations, it'll be coming up soon, and it's a good information session anyway. I'm glad to see just a quick skim of our participants. I can see that we have participants from ICAO in Montreal, SCBD in Montreal, WHO in Geneva, UNAIDS Geneva, WHO Afro, IMO in London, UNIDO in Vienna, ICTP in Trieste, WHO Euro in Copenhagen. So we have a really good spread of FICSA members, and I think that this is really helpful. I'm going to really encourage you all to think about what you've heard just now and ask as many questions as you can while you have, and I've just been told WHO MRO is also online. Think about as many questions as you have while we have our experts online, where we have Imed and Omar with us. Of course, if afterwards you feel that there's something you forgot to ask or something that wasn't clear, of course you can contact us after the session as well, and we're more than happy to provide assistance. But while we have the opportunity to ask in public and share the information and share the questions, I think this would be a good opportunity where we can. I'm going to start with the questions, if I may, and this one is just for clarification. Omar, there has been concern, as I'm sure you're aware, about the process in general over the past few years, and but staff feel concerned that it's transparent and whatever. So I just wanted to reassure our LSC members that There is provision for the federations to sit as observers on the LSC. And currently I'm sitting as an observer for FICSA in Geneva. Imed is sitting as an observer in Vienna, and we have others. So I just wanted, Omar, if you could confirm that that's the process across the board. And I also just wanted to stress about it that we're very aware of the concerns of our colleagues in all duty stations, not just in the HQ duty stations, about the impact of COVID, and stress that one of the ways we've tried to mitigate the concerns is by agreeing on criteria that have to be assessed before any survey takes place. So as you just heard from Omar already in Vienna, New York, and I think it's Rome, that criteria has been assessed and the surveys have been agreed to and they are going ahead. And before the surveys go ahead in any other duty station, the first port of call is for the LSCs to assess that duty station and give their recommendation to the ICSC as to whether or not the survey should go ahead in that particular duty station. So again, Omar, it would be good if you could just give one or two quick points on the experience so far in that regard and how it's worked, and how you've cooperated with the LSCs and the ICSC to ensure that any concerns about the COVID situation have been discussed thoroughly and everybody's on the same page going forward. So I'll leave it there. Omar, if you can answer those two questions, and then I see we already have a couple of other hands up, and I'll pass you through. Please, Omar.
Thank you, Tanya. On the observers, maybe I'll leave Ibrahim to say a word or two about it, but usually this will be people with no vested interest in the result, and usually will be either retirees or someone engaged by the LSC at the duty station. So I'll leave to Ibrahim to speak on having FICSA as an observer in the price collection. So that I'll leave to Ibrahim.
Sorry, Omar, it wasn't in the price collection. It was just as an observer of the process of the LSC as a whole.
Okay. So sorry for the yes. That's fine. Perfect. Thank you very much. Okay. So in the impact of COVID and the criteria of assessment, yes, this was well deliberated. Thanks very much to the points from FICSA on insisting on this during the ICSC deliberations. The criteria of assessment was done for almost all the duty stations, and we have gotten the green light from almost all of them, even for the November surveys. And we have had lengthy discussions with the duty stations. A minimum of 2 training sessions were conducted for the LSCs of all the headquarter for all the duty stations having survey in October and November. The LSCs were trained on the survey process and the methodology and also about the criteria of assessment. This it was a very collaborative effort. They have sought for guidance from ICSC Secretariat, and this was provided, and so far almost all of them have confirmed that the survey can proceed. For those in October already, it's underway, and so as the ones for November as well. I hope that clarifies Tanya.
That's
Ibrahim,
great.
not sure if you wanted to add anything on this point.
Ibrahim? There he is.
Hi,
Welcome,
thank you.
Ibrahim.
Greetings from Paris. I'm at UNESCO, and they were kind enough to relieve me early this afternoon, so I was able to attend this. Now, on the observers of the price collection process, now Imed might be referring to something that was done for the special Brussels survey some time ago. This was a very special one. And so staff federations were also allowed to send representatives to accompany the pricing teams. But this is not part of our regular procedure. Now, our regular procedure for duty stations is that everything is handled by the local survey committee. And the local survey committee nominates folks as observers of the process in that duty station. Now, as Omar said, just for conflict of interest purposes, so that there is no, if not even an appearance of conflict of interest, it would be good to have people who do not have a stake in the process, but they are just there to ensure that the procedures are followed. And hopefully they are knowledgeable enough about the market that they can suggest, even to the pricing teams, you know, what range of quality or what are the particular spending patterns of the staff population in that duty station. They could be very, very helpful, but their primary responsibility is to ensure that the ICSC, I mean, we think we will do the right thing, of course, but it would be good for your people to say that to you rather than ICSC says that to you. So it's just that to avoid any kind of appearance of conflict of interest, it would be good to get somebody who does not have a stake. Now, the sub-federations could be involved in the identification of this specific people, and all kinds of arrangements can be made. You might remember in 2016 in Geneva, there was a point that we even, I think even active staff that were general service and therefore did not have a particular stake in post-adjustment were nominated as observers to accompany the pricing teams. But I think that in your duty station, in various duty stations, if the federation can, I mean, you guys are more in touch with staff generally than any other stakeholder. So you are likely to be in touch with some retirees in your duty station that you can nominate for this process. Also at the processing stage, you might remember in 2016 that the staff federations also sent, of course it would be good to coordinate with the administrations, but you have your own independent right of sending people. Just one more detail to add to that. This time around, it will not be just 2 days. They would have, every duty station would have 1 week for this desk review. And it's a comprehensive desk review, unlike what we had in the past when we were frantically processing data while these experts were around. And in most cases, they were only able to see the price data and to verify the analysis of the price data. This time around is the whole thing, including the expenditure survey data, how the weights were constructed at every level before you get to the PAI. So that is why 1 week is allocated to every duty station for this.
If I may quickly comment on regard to the observers. Yes, indeed, when we discussed, this was with regard to participation in the meetings of the local survey committee, and everyone agreed that the federations could have observers within the local survey committees to oversee also and monitor the process. But with regard also to the data collection team, I think based exactly on what you said, there is nothing that would speak if FICSA would provide an expert from one duty station. Let's say, if I would go to Rome, I have no vested interest in Rome. My salary, even if I'm professional staff, will not be affected by the outcome in Rome. So this is up to, of course, the local survey committee to coordinate with the federation if they would like to use their experts. Sending individuals to different duty stations, that would be feasible, and it is fully in line with what you just said now, Ibrahim.
Yeah, yes, you are right. I mean, all I would suggest is that this be coordinated with the local survey committee. Basically, if the committee comes up and says even one or even 2 observers, they would be considered. Remember, there are 2 pricing teams. We do not want to overcrowd the stores, particularly under the current circumstances. So 1 observer would be good for 1 pricing team. So there will be 2 observers in all. if you have somebody good that you want to participate, just run it by the local survey committee, and we're okay with it.
That's good. Thank you for clarifying that, Ibrahim. And I see, yes, I'm just going to see that I see that there's at least 2 of our UNAIDS colleagues who have to leave in the next 5 minutes. So I'm going to, Lena, if you don't mind, I'm going to give the floor first to Andrea and then to Emily, who have questions. And then I'll come back to you, Lena, if that's okay. Please, Andrea first.
I don't know if this one, if you want, is the right place to ask, but you have presented, if you want, the cost survey, and the cost adjustment index will be calculated. I think that will be good as well if you do a short presentation or introduction about which will be the impact, if you want, considering the re-established gap measure closure, in the case that the post adjustment basically is going to variate of more and less 3%. Because I don't know if all the people that are here basically will know the change occurred, if you want, in the last years in a way.
Yeah, thanks, Andrea. That's a good point on the gap closure measure, which I don't think has been mentioned until now. And that's when we come to the results of the survey when they come out. And we'll ask either Ibrahim or Omar to give some clarification on that point. Thanks for that, Andrea. Emily, I see you put a question in the chat. Would you like to ask it?
I can, but I think hopefully it's explanatory. It was just in terms of the eligibility criteria for filling out the survey for expenditures. I hadn't heard the rule around not being able to participate if you share rent. I wanted to just know where the document was that had that written in it, because there are a lot of people who share rent either with their spouse or are co-located with who are now unable to participate.
Okay. Thanks, Emily. As I know both you and Andrea have to leave now, I'll ask I'll turn over to Ibrahim and Omar if they can please answer those 2 questions before you leave. Thank you.
I will take the easy one and leave the tough one for Omar. Yeah, the gap closure measure, first of all, we all hope and pray that there are no negative results. But what if there are? What if we get a result that is negative and it is more than 3%? And the reference is the pay level at the point of implementation. So if it is negative by more than 3%, then the gap closure measure would kick in. And I'll say today, and I've said before, the mechanism, the new mechanism for the gap closure measure is, in my view, better than what we had in the past, if what you're interested in is to keep more of your money in the short term. So what we would then do is to bump up the survey PAI by 3%. So it's more than 3%. So let's say it's 5% negative. We'll bump it up by 3%. And this bumped up PAI would then determine the multiplier for the duty station. But then what do you do about existing staff? So the existing staff get paid a personal transitional allowance, which would make up for the difference for 6 months. So for 6 months, you don't experience any difference whatsoever in net take-home pay. What happens after 6 months? Then your net take-home pay gets reduced. The PTA, the personal transitional allowance, gets adjusted, but the way it's adjusted is different than before. What we did before was to adjust the PTA itself, but now we would take the net take-home pay of the existing staff, in other words, with the full gap, and reduce it by 3%, and see if there's still a gap between that and the regular folks, the new staff. And if there's a gap, then that gap is again paid. to existing staff. But the existing staff would have that a little bit of a reduction 6 months later, and that is kept on for 4 months, and then it is revised again. So it's really a very gradual decline in net take-home pay. Before, we did have a 5% bump, but then it got adjusted every 3 months, and the grace period was only 3 months. Now the grace period is 6 months, no difference, and then it's revised downward by only 3%, and it's every 4 months. So this is what would happen if the results are negative. But I want everybody to remember that the idea of gap closure, negative survey results, and so on is a new thing for headquarters and Group 1 duty stations. It never happened before. And there's no reason to expect that it would happen again necessarily. It may or may not. I think there are more chances that it would not happen than it would. So it's very important to keep this in mind. In 2016, besides the regular evolution of cost of living, which was negative in some duty stations, I'm looking at Geneva, I'm looking at Rome, I'm looking at Madrid. But in addition to that, there were a lot of changes that were made to the methodology and the operational rules. You might remember the rent index calculation methodology was changed. The out of area weight specification was changed. The 5% augmentation in the gap closure measure was changed. The basket of goods and services was changed. So there were a lot of changes. Now, this time around, despite everything you've heard about the comprehensive review and all of this, things are pretty similar. They've been refined and improved in certain aspects, but the fundamentals are the same. And so we do not expect too much. It's on the basis of this that I'm saying we do not expect too much change. So it's a new thing, this gap closure business for Group 1 duty stations. But if they occur, the new operational rules are much better than before. In
The
terms
most
of
important thing, I think, Ibrahim, when explaining the gap closure measure, especially within the new operational rules, is that it kicks in if there are negative results. That's when it kicks in, and I think this is exactly what Andrea wanted to know. Thank you, Ibrahim. Over to you, Tanya. You're on mute, Tanya.
Thank you. I keep putting myself on mute because we have works going on outside my window, so apologies for any background noise. Thank you, Ibrahim, for your comprehensive explanation. Omar, did you have an answer for Emily's question?
Yes, on the eligibility about sharing rent with others. Well, this does not in any sense mean a staff member sharing rent with a spouse or with the children pitching in on the rent. No, it's mainly to gauge somebody who is on a temporary residence, somebody who's generally new to the duty station and who is in a temporary place and has not settled fully. But if someone is sharing rate and they're established at the duty station, then they're eligible to participate. So this sharing rent is to give a sense of somebody who is in transition, who was just recently come to the duty station and whose expenditure is not typical of what happens at the duty station. Thank you.
Thank you, Omar. Unfortunately, Emily has not left. We'll pass that, has now left, and we'll pass that response on to her. And if she needs any more details, I'll encourage her to come back to you in person on that question. We have a few more hands up. Ibrahim, did you want to come in on the same point? You're on mute.
Just to clarify, if you are sharing rents and you, as Omar said, you can participate in the survey, but I'm talking about two colleagues at the duty station sharing rents. But if you record your rent correctly and honestly, the chances are that you are paying half of the rent for that dwelling, and then it would then depend on whether that the rent that you provide survives the analysis. I mean, you could have a very expensive apartment where one room is the same as a two-bedroom apartment in the same duty state. It's possible, but if it is not, and you are actually recording half of the normal rent, this would most likely be discarded in the analysis because it might be quite unrepresentative of the rent levels at the duty station.
Okay. Okay, thank you for the additional information, Ibrahim. As I say, we'll pass that on to Emily, and if there's any additional clarification required, she will come back to us on that. Thank you so much. Lena, you have been incredibly patient, please.
Yes, thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I missed a few minutes, so apologies if some of these points have already been raised. But I wanted to raise some concerns that some of our colleagues have raised about the online data collection. I have 3 points. I know you may not be able to respond to all of them, but just to raise them. One is that many of the online prices are not the actual prices at which you receive the good. For example, for flights, many of the online prices are, for example, tickets excluding luggage. So, but when you've come to the end of ordering something, the price has increased much compared to the price that you've seen on the website. So that is one. The second one is the delivery lag on online shopping, where you might be able to find something cheaply online, but it will only come to you after 1 to 2 months, which is, you know, a disincentive, and or you might choose not to buy that and get the expensive option, which is available immediately. And finally, someone raised with me the concern that, you know, the online shopping would increase your out of area expenditure. For example, if you buy from Amazon or another global website, would that be out of area or would it be in area? And how would that be reflected in the methodology? Thank you.
Thank you, Lena. I see we have, how would you like to do it? Omar, tell me, I have at least 2 more hands up and 2 questions in the chat. So
we can ask all the questions. Some of them might be similar, so I think we can.
Okay, yes, excellent. Thank you. And I'm going to introduce each participant and include their organization just so everybody understands where they're coming from. We have Tanya from WHO EMRO in Cairo. Tanya, please.
Thanks, Tanya. Okay, so my question is regarding the situation that we had in Cairo duty station, where the devaluation happened in 2016. In 2017, there was a post-adjustment, and we had a stopgap measure for about 4 months. We went from, I think we were around 30% post-adjustment to almost 22%. Basically, we became a duty station that nobody wanted to come to. Not only that, staff, although, you know, it looked, because of the devaluation, the Egyptian pound went from 6 or 7 pounds to the dollar to almost 15, 16 pounds to the dollar. The reality on the ground was that inflation soared to an excessive amount. And this was not taken into account at all. And as a result, on top of that, a lot of what our colleague Lena just mentioned, that a lot of things were not available anymore in Egypt, and we had to buy things online, which meant that you got hit with a huge duty cost. So all of this was not taken into account. Only this year did we now reach, we're back up to 30 or 34%, I'm not sure exactly. And this took, now we're 2021. It took this long to reach up, to go back to this. I just want to give you an idea of what we're dealing with. In 2012, I was making more, because the post-adjustment was at 40%. I was making more, even though I changed grades, than in 2017 or 2018, something like that, 2018. So I was making more in 2012. So this gives you an idea, and the cost of living was soaring. So my point is that a lot of the methodologies that were being used were not conducive to staff, and it really hit staff, and it also caused a big issue with being able to recruit people into this duty station, which is one of, I think we're number 5 as the largest duty station in the world. And this impacted us. This severely impacted. We could not get the highest caliber of people. Because why would you come and even though you're getting a promotion, you would actually get less than what you were getting before? My other question is related to if our benchmark is the United States and our benchmark is the US, I believe that we go by the highest standard of civil service, which is the United States government. Well, the United States Foreign Service has a standard post-adjustment of 25%. So should we not ever go below that 25% threshold? Because this has, again, this is very important because there has to be a baseline that we never go below, at least in my opinion. Over to you.
Thank you, Tanya. I'll go ahead with the other questions and we'll come back to Omar and Ibrahim for answers. Alida, I was going to call on you, but I see that your question has been answered in the chat by Ibrahim. Is that sufficient, the answer in the chat, Alida?
Yes, thank you. Yes, thank you.
Okay, great. Perhaps what I'll do is I'll just explain that the Alida had asked if the process about the gap closure measure applied also to increases, and Ibrahim replied that the amount that this is about in the case of decreases, as it's not applied to increases. There's no limit to the amount of increases. So the gap closure measure is only in cases of decreases. I'm saying this because not everybody has access to the chat, which is why I'm also going to ask Kay, you had a couple of questions in the chat. Do you want to ask them in person, please? Kay from WHO Euro.
My question was if somebody could explain the difference between the cost of living survey and the place to survey. And I'm sorry, Ibrahim, but I didn't quite understand. I didn't understand your answer.
Could I clarify quickly, because I have to leave in the next minute. So we say cost of living surveys, that's a general term. Under that term, we would have place-to-place surveys and housing surveys. Place-to-place surveys is the entire thing, is the whole shebang. We'll collect prices from the markets, the retail market. We'll collect expenditures from staff, both on housing and household expenditures. Is the whole thing, such as what we'll be doing very soon in October and November in headquarters duty stations. We also have housing surveys that just collect information on housing-related costs. So these two are in general referred to as cost of living surveys anyway. And I've just described to you what are place-to-place surveys. That is the full collection of prices and expenditures, everything. Whereas, as opposed to housing surveys, which only collect information on housing. Sometimes these two types are done independently. I'm sorry, I have to leave. Omar, you are in good hands with Omar to answer the rest of the questions. Thank you very much for everything.
Thank you so much for your presence today, Ibrahim. Much appreciated, and good luck. Hope to see you soon. Vero, I see that you had asked a question, but then you're saying thank you to Ibrahim's response. So I'm hoping that that's
yeah, that's fine. Thank you.
That's fine with you. Okay, and that's in the chat. And I'm actually looking. I see that. I think there was a bit of an error when the Teams invite went out. Normally, our Ask the FICSA Expert sessions are for 90 minutes, 1 hour and a half. And it seems that the Teams invite went out for 3 hours or something like that. So I'm hoping that everybody can. Normally we should end at 3:30. So if that's okay with everybody, we'll aim for that and perhaps just a couple of minutes over. We'll go on with the questions. Amidou. Bonjour, Amidou. We have Amidou from WHO Afro. Please.
Oui, bonjour.
Bonjour, bienvenue.
Merci. Je ne sais pas si je peux me parler en français ou bien en anglais.
Je crois que c'est mieux en anglais cette fois.
Well, je vais essayer. I will try.
Okay, thank you.
We have here in Brazzaville, Congo, a special case because we had a local survey in 2019, and we had a decrease of salaries. And the last survey we had with positive result was in 2008. And we don't understand why it is like this. Because all the things have increased, the prices are increased, and the results we have are very bad for us. And the staff are complaining. We want to see the UNDP representative, and we are trying to see how we can handle this case, because people are moving every day to my office complaining. So we want your advice and how we can handle this. Over to you.
Thank you, Amidou. I'm not too sure. Are you talking about the local salary for the local salaries, the locally recruited staff? Or are you talking about the
Yes.
LSC for locally
Yes.
recruited? Okay. That's a very good question, and we'll hold on to that, but it's not relevant to this topic because we're talking only about the cost of living surveys for professional staff and above, unfortunately. But we will, if you can just write that question to me, and we'll get ICSC to answer it for you in another time, if that's okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Amidou. And I know there's a lot going on all at once, and everybody wants every question answered. Unfortunately, we're trying to focus on the one area today, if we can. Omar, I think we have everybody's questions. Would you be able to?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lynn. Thank you, Tanya. I'll start with the Lynn question about the online price collection. Yes, as Imed said, this is new for this round. Because where this is available, we are going to be using the online price collection. But I tell you, this is in full collaboration with LSC, and this is why the task of drawing the outlet list is left with the LSC. So if you tell us that this store online pricing is not good, is not comparable to the in-store pricing, we remove it. We will be going with the recommendation of the LSC to point out to stores that cannot be priced online. We will not be pricing from outlets that are not in the approved list. They have to be in the approved list. And for reasons that you mentioned, we want to ensure that the online pricing is the same as the in-store pricing. And we know that there are some stores that do have this policy, and for those ones, it will be easier to price online. This online price collection is not mandatory, by the way. It's not mandatory. We are still going to the duty stations. Majority of the prices will obviously be collected in person, but where the online price collection is feasible and similar to the in-person price in-store prices, then we will do the online price collection. But again, this is in full collaboration with the LSC. About the issue of in-area and out-of-area on purchasing online. Now, yes, this is a question that comes back quite often. And this is how you will distinguish whether this will be in area or out of area. It will be determined by the store where you're buying from. So if you are in Vienna and you're purchasing stuff online from stores in Vienna, that's definitely in area. But if you're purchasing something from, for example, Amazon.com, we know that Amazon.com is a US-based outlet. So that becomes out of area. So that is the distinction between in-area in-area component and out of area for online shopping. It will be determined by the jurisdiction of the outlet. So if that outlet is outside of your country of duty station, again, this is country, not necessarily the city, it's the country. If it is outside of the country of duty station, it should be regarded as out of area. That outlet is within the country of duty station, it should be regarded or recorded as in area. I hope that clears the distinction. Imed, you have something?
Yeah, raise a point here because I remember very well, and I raised this question during the previous ICSC session. Now let me use example of Vienna. We use Amazon.de, and I explained to you that the products may come from this warehouse that Amazon has got in Austria, or might come from Germany. And the answer to that, in fact, what I clearly understood in this case, would have to be registered in-area expenditure. So I see you nodding, so you're confirming.
Yes.
The understanding correct.
Yes,
Thank
yes. So Amazon.d is the Austria one, I guess. So that will be obviously in area for people in Vienna. But if it's somebody from Rome ordering something on Amazon.d, you said, that will be out of area for them. Okay. Or Amazon.fr, I think there is also one for France. That will be the distinction. Going on to Tanya's question about what happened in Cairo on the devaluation of the local currency in 20. I don't know the year, but the devaluation of the currency. So this happens quite often, and it's often the case that when a devaluation happens, post adjustment goes lower for any duty station. The reason is because these post-adjustment indices are updated every month. Every month we have this publication on the ICSC website determining what is your post-adjustment index, what is the post-adjustment multiplier. But we do not conduct surveys every month for one duty station. What we're doing is we are updating based on exchange rate and inflation published by the National Statistical Office. So if for a particular month there's a significant devaluation, because we're measuring what was the purchasing power. If there's a devaluation in a local currency, it means you will need fewer dollars compared to what you had before to purchase the same basket. You will need, because now you will, for $1 you will have more local currency. You will need fewer dollars to purchase the same basket you had before, and this is why there is a decrease in the post-adjustment multiplier. So once the devaluation happens, because that is how the methodology is set, we tie it to the exchange rate, the official exchange rate between the US dollar and the local currency. We need to update. We need to update based on the new numbers. And so a devaluation, significant devaluation, generally, if it is more than 10 multiplier points, leads to a conduct of a survey, the conduct of which is called the 10-point rule, or if it is more than 5%, leads to a gap closure. The gap closure measure is only from a survey, not the regular updating. The regular updating leads to a survey only if you have the 10-point rule kicked in. That means your multiplier points go down by more than 10 points. And you said inflation soared. That's true. This is what we see. Usually when significant devaluation happens, it's followed by increases in prices because a lot of the outlets probably are purchasing this in hard currency, and so they need to scoop more of the local currency to be able to have the same amount in hard currency. So inflation soars, but this is also accounted for. Right now we have, for example, Sudan that is having this issue as we speak. They have had a significant devaluation, and if you look at the inflation, you will be surprised. You will be surprised. And even with this significant inflation, because of the devaluation, once their numbers, we run their numbers, their multiplier is still low. If we were to base it on the results from the updating. So the inflation is taken into consideration because every month we get the CPIs from the National Statistical Office. So and this is how we keep track of inflation. The benchmark is in New York, yes. And you're saying in Cairo the standard is 25% for the foreign service of the US. For US, there's a difference between post adjustment and the salary. The salary is benchmarked to the US government salary scale. Post adjustment is just New York cost of living. It has nothing to do with the government. It has nothing to do with the civil service at all. It's just the cost of living of New York, and has nothing to do with the government. What is set against the US as a benchmark, the US civil service, is the base salary, and this is how the scale is developed. And so I hope that makes the distinction. Post adjustment, the lowest it can go is 0. We do not have negative post adjustment. even though in some places at some point you will see this, but the lowest for post adjustment is 0. We don't have negative number. I think that is all from the questions I have so far. K of WHO, the question is answered, and also Amido, yes. Amido, if it is about the local salary survey, it's a different unit that handles this. Today is about post adjustment, and the cost of living is for the professional staff. The post adjustment, those ones that get paid post adjustment. Thank you. Over to you, Tanya.
Thank you, Omar. I see that Tanya has also put in the chat that she wanted to know when the Cairo survey will take place, but I don't think we have dates for the duty stations outside of HQ duty stations at this stage.
But Cairo will still be under the 2016, and if you give me a minute, I can quickly check and let you know that. 1 second. Because Cairo we're still conducting survey under the 2016 round for the other field duty station. So if they haven't had one last year, they'll probably be having one this year. But I'm just checking. Give me a second.
No problem. And while Omar is checking, Tanya, I see that you're referring to the UN Foreign Service. Our comparator, as far as I know, is the US Civil Service. And I think it's as we're coming towards the end of the meeting, would it be okay if I ask you, Tanya, to put your questions in writing? And we can then have them clarified by Omar and more directly. Would that work for you, Tanya? Tanya? Your hand is up.
Yes, that works fine, but I just wanted to clarify, we already had our post-adjustment or the cost of living survey. It was done this last year, or yeah, I think it was last year. But what I'm asking about is the hardship reclassification, which was supposed to happen last year, but I believe was moved.
Hardship is yet again a different topic indeed. Yeah. Imed.
Regarding question on the chat by Kay, why are some still being done under 2016 since the 2021 is out? I'm not sure that this is accurate because the operational rules, for example, have been approved by the Commission and they are already applicable. Omar, maybe you can confirm that.
Yes, thank you very much.
Bangkok. They said Bangkok and Nairobi are still using the 26 methodology, and that didn't make sense to me since the new one's out.
Let me explain how this is done. So generally, once a new round is promulgated, we usually start with the headquarter duty stations. Now with Bangkok and New York for purposes of representativity of the expenditure. Now, once the results are approved, we adapt the methodology for the field duty stations. So field meaning group 2 duty stations. This adaptation happens after the results of the headquarter duty stations is known and approved. So we adapt, and actually in the next ACPAC, I think this will be one of the topics, how the methodology is adapted for the field duty station. It will generally be very close, but there's a little tweaks that need to be done for the field duty stations. So until that is done, we cannot announce these surveys to the field duty stations. And so this is why there's usually a lag. And even in a few years, you might see some duty stations still under the 2016 round. I tell you, we have duty stations now in the field that are under the 2010 round. Under the 2010 round, because they did not happen to have a survey scheduled. So their original data is that which was conducted in the 2016 round, and so that is still being updated because there was no survey that could be scheduled for these duty stations. So it does not mean that they enter into the round at the same time. All duty stations, it's gradually phased.
But Omar, for clarification purposes, the new operational rules, in particular, those triggers that have been established to address issues relevant to the field duty stations, are already applicable to them. Like
Yes,
the
they are.
annual
They are.
and formal.
But that's very true. They are applicable once they come into the 2021 round.
Not
But
now.
if they conduct their surveys under the 2016 round, they will still be under the 2016 operational rules.
Okay, that's
Even if they conduct, I'm pretty sure there will be surveys conducted for the field duty stations in 2022, 2023 under the 2016 round. Because one, we cannot conduct all these surveys at the same time. We have like about 10 or 11 surveys every month, and two, they need to be phased. So we need the results of the HQs determined, because the determination of the result of the HQ will also set the common weights to be used. One of the elements that we need, why these results should be approved first, is the common weights for 2021. The common weights come from these 11 duty stations that we mentioned, including Bangkok and Nairobi. So that weight, those weights common weights need to be approved. And this is why. And so if
go ahead, sorry.
So probably from next year, any survey that's scheduled will be under the 2021 round, but we cannot schedule all of them at the same time. So some duty stations will continue to use the 2016. See the point? And then once the results of the HQ is approved, any survey that's scheduled then will obviously be under the 2021 round.
Okay, it might be helpful to get that answer in writing, actually, Omar, just so that we can, because I think this is a question we're going to have again and again coming up. Mm-hmm. So it would be helpful to have that that question in writing, or that
yes.
answer in writing,
Yep.
and so we can provide that should it come up again.
Yeah.
Voila, I think there's one last question in the chat. When will HQ survey be approved? Yeah. That's the result. Yes, you go ahead, Imed.
Yeah, that's exactly what I wanted to answer. Is actually at the ACMEC meeting normally held in February, the results are presented and discussed at ACMEC with a recommendation to the Commission for confirmation of those results, and then that would be approved. Omar, can you confirm?
Yes, for this round, we think ACPAC will probably be in April or May next year. Okay. And the Commission session will be in July or August next year, and that's where the results will be discussed. So July, so we won't see anything implemented before August, most likely.
So there we go. August 2022 is when the Correct. Results of the current surveys will be implemented.
Correct.
Okay. I hope that is helpful for you, Wala. Thank you, Imed. Imed, would you like to do you have any closing remarks?
No, thank you first, Tanya, and everyone for organizing this session. I hope that our colleagues found it informative. And please, should you have any questions throughout this process, let us know. We'll be happy to support you and provide you with the guidance as necessary. I also appreciate the dialogue we have established with the ICSC Secretariat, and we hope we can count, Omar, throughout this process until July, August next year. We can count on your knowledge and expertise to assist us as well as the members. Thank you, Tanya.
Thank you, Imed, and thank you for your expertise and for sharing your knowledge with our colleagues today. Omar, did you have any final comments?
No, I just wanted to say thanks everyone for coming into this. We usually see some increase in knowledge once we do a meeting like this. And for duty stations, please don't be shy to approach us. We do conduct trainings and virtual trainings, sometimes missions to the duty stations if you're facing a situation, particularly for the field duty stations, where a lot of guidance might be needed. Please reach out to us, reach out to FICSA or any of your staff federations who can in turn reach out to us. But our doors are open. As a survey coordinator or as an LSC member, you can easily reach out to us for an explanation, for conducting a town hall or an explanation of the methodology. Please do so if it's needed, and we'll be obliged to do. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Omar. You just anticipated exactly what I was going to say. Please don't hesitate to reach out. I'm sure after it's a lot of information, it's a lot of technical details. So I'm sure upon reflection, you may have some further questions, and please don't hesitate to come back to us. And as Imed said, he's available as an expert for FICSA, and we have a very good dialogue with the ICSC, and we're very happy to pass on your questions and do an FAQ to answer as much as we can. Thank you all for your active participation, and thank you particularly to Irwan and Mary-Paul, who are always behind the scenes in FICSA meetings. So they're the ones who kept this meeting running, so thank you to them. I hope to see you all very soon, and please keep in touch. Thank you. Stay safe. Bye-bye. Thank you.